Okay, welcome, Eric Atsma, to the show, man. I appreciate you joining us. Man, we're going to talk about a few things that I want to get out of you specifically. But I bet most don't know this, and internally, I really want to give to the audience and the people that are listening in regards to what they can pull from your story. And I think what you're doing right now is very under the radar. It's remarkable. I bet most won't know that you're on track to be our top producer this year. On the commercial lines advisor side. That was a title that you used to hold very often. So, by the way, congratulations so far, 8 months in.
Yeah, thank you.
To the fiscal year. How you feeling?
Feeling good. Feeling great, man.
Yeah.
Feeling awesome. Been a great year.
Well, let me frame this up, because what we want to get into today is how you transitioned from an agent to a business builder. And I think regardless of whether you're on commercial lines, you're on personal lines, or in your relationship management, you're going to be able to splice out the context to help you do that for your business. And let's talk about why being an agent has its challenges and why being a business builder has its benefits. And, one of the quotes that I wrote down is how to transform your business into a business worth having. And, we talk about being a generalist, which I'll call that an agent. Yep. Which is how you started your career. You came in and learned the business in 2017, right?
Yeah.
By the way, let's start there.
Yeah.
Insurance. We get connected. We party at FAI.
Yeah.
And then you're looking to become a producer. We sit down. How the heck did this all get started?
Man, started with some mutual friends of my family that were in the insurance space in Michigan, and through them got connected with someone here in Florida, Todd Markell, and he just said, "Hey, we're looking for young people in insurance." And what really interested me the most was I like business, I like entrepreneurship, and being able to work with business owners and learn their business, learn what they do, help them improve their business. That was really what drove me to the space, is just being able to help people in their business and learn a lot about different industries and have fun with that.
Yeah. And speaking of having fun, we met Eric at FAI at an Olympus party and partied until the wee hours of the morning. And we were like, in the morning's like, hey, he's one of us. But, I bet most people don't know about this, but your family has a very successful small business up in Michigan.
Yeah.
A small grocery chain, now 4 locations.
Yeah, 4 locations.
So I think your love for entrepreneurship and business probably started there growing up and continues to this day.
Yeah.
I know you continue to pull a lot and learn a lot from your parents and everything in between, man. So I'm glad you're here, but you came in looking at producer gigs, we kind of talked to you about, hey, come get paid to learn, before you go out and just get a split as a producer and go try to kill some stuff before you know the business. Hey, what do you think about coming in and learning the service role and get trained up? And then if you eventually want to be a producer, that opportunity will be here. And you did that. You came in 2017, just go through a quick history, and did more than you were paid for consistently.
Yeah. I'll tell you too, just while we're on that topic, when I was interviewing with you guys, I heard Brett's story of starting as a producer and kind of how that went. That really resonated with me. I mean, I knew nothing about insurance or how it worked, and just hearing that, and I kind of like the service role first to learn and kind of baby steps, but hearing his story was super powerful for me.
Yeah, you know what, I don't even remember that, but that's right, just how much of a struggle it is, right?
Yeah, like how it just he did it that way, and then he thought it was this way, and then they changed the game on him, and I was like, wow, man, that's eye-opening of one, who you getting in business with, who you working with, and 2 is like just understand what you're getting into and learn it the right way.
And I think, too, I think there's a hard conversation at some point to just be honest about what that looks like for people. It's one thing to dangle, a dream in front of somebody and give them a commission-only job without really painting the picture of how hard it is. If it's something you've done before and you have a foothold in the industry, fine. You're going to have success. It's probably a different deal. But if you haven't done it before and you all of a sudden from day one get paid on what you bring in, and these sales cycles in commercial are not short, they're long sales, so I think I'm glad that worked out, and I'm glad that it says something about you and your humility to kind of take that advice and that counsel and put it to work. But I just remember your story in 2017, just coming in and just getting busy, man, just getting after it. I know I was charged with training you a few months before I kind of went out to Melbourne, but we had an acquisition, and in the middle of that, like the person that you were training you was no longer training you. You had to be very independent and learn the business. So much of it kind of independent of any direct leadership because of the timing, and then earned your way into kind of a small business sales role, and then eventually to an advisor. But I wanted to go over your numbers, tying it back to being an agent versus a business builder, and being a generalist, and why that matters. And this will just blow you away. I know you got the email that I prepped this for, but for the listener, I want to just give you a snapshot. In 2018, you start as an agent, and you crush it, really. I mean, you wrote 191 policies at about $582,000 in new business premium for the year. The next year, you escalate that to 773,000 in 216 units. So you can see you're just kind of layering on more units. And then you go to your perceived mountaintop in 2020, where you almost write $1 million in premium. You qualify platinum for President's Club, 246 policies in a year. And if you don't know commercial lines, that is an abnormal amount of policies, where that is just straight grind mode. Let me just get a lead and do my best job to place it, regardless of the size, whether it's E&S, whether it's admitted. You just did an unbelievable job doing that. And you would stay late. I remember you were in the office at 7 p.m. seemingly every night. And we kind of would start like kicking you out. Be like, dude, you got to go home. You got to go home. You got to go home. But you're just work ethic. You were just willing it over the finish line, only your third year in the production. And then kind of the game change. So before I move on from finishing the history, what was that like in 2020 as you learn the business, you start to have success, and to handle that much volume commercial lines? Is it like your hair on fire, placing business? And what was that like to do 246 policies on the commercial side, almost $1 million in premium?
Man, I mean, it being, I guess, almost 4 years ago now, it seems like a long time ago, but I think those couple years doing the service first, for a year roughly, and then getting into the sales seat and having those kind of years of building, it just kept becoming more natural, So with the experience, it was probably the same amount of effort, if not, felt easier than 2018 to get a lot more out of it. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing it felt, and it just also I think I have a strong mindset of just one foot in front of the other.
Yes.
Stay in the moment, just do this, and add them up at the end. So, it felt great, but it's one of those things that you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and see where it takes you.
Yeah, I do think that was a quote I had that I wanted to spice out.
We'll get that later.
That's your superpower. I think that is your superpower. Is you just, people say like I'm a grinder, and it probably comes from your background in golf, but like you're a grinder. You're willing to do the little things consistently over a long period of time. And you're just one of those people that are hard to compete against, because you're like, man, I don't want to compete about that guy's he's on his 100th squat and he's still smiling. Like, I don't like that. I'm over, you just have that will. So I'll go on. So then in 2020, we start to realize like, hey, being a generalist, being an agent, just getting all these different types of business and placing them, it has its consequences, right? It has its challenges. It's very hard to service. Now the relationship manager has to get to know these accounts that you're very tied to, that are not really consistent, like the level of volume that you have to service. Like, we started to realize as a business that this has real consequences. As much success as you were having, we looked at the numbers, we looked at the trends, that if you were to look years out, we go, we can't sustain this. And you know what, more important, we can't sustain this. I don't think we can duplicate this. I don't think this is a scalable and sustainable model. And so we decided that, hey, we have to raise the threshold of the bigger businesses we write. We can't take all this small stuff at a high volume just because the service infrastructure costs. I kind of compare this to, on the personal line side, just writing homeowners. Like, if you just write homeowners for a long period of time, like, it's probably not a big deal. But after a couple of years of doing that, it just taxes your system.
Right.
And you have less revenue per household, more service, and you just can't keep ahead of it. So if you personal lines people are listening, this is like writing homeowners without the auto for years, and you compound it, and it brings real challenges from a profitability. I wrote down a quote. Why does it matter? Why does it matter to be an advisor? Why does it matter to be sustainable and profitable? It's sustainable, duplicatable, and scalable. The ability to consistently deliver on the promise you made to the customer at a profit. That's business. If you don't have that, you don't have a business, and you're not a business builder. And so you had to shift away from not only writing bigger accounts, but now being charged with generating your own leads and kind of trending towards more of the niche. What am I going to call on? Cold calls. I'm going to start to build my business rather than, hey, whatever comes in, I'll write it. So transfer, and the business kind of stopped, right? I mean, that was a shock to the system. So before I kind of move on, what was that like when Rod came and we kind of came to you and said, hey, we're moving in a different direction. This is what's going to be required of this position is going to be different. What did that feel like at the time when that challenge came?
Yeah, it was a shock to the system in a sense, but at the same time, it made sense. Like, I feel like all the decisions I've seen this company make, which is why I love being here. It's like these decisions make sense, right? And you guys explain it in a way that makes sense. And I was feeling it too. Like, I remember making calls to Rod and being like, we can't keep doing this. Like, it's just because I would inevitably and to my own detriments at times is like get involved in the service end, and I still do, but it's like I could see the workload of that not being worth the price of admission, and so it was like this makes sense that to continue on and be successful, we have to be more focused and write bigger units, and say no to things. I think up to that point, didn't say no to anything, and it was like
Dynamite factory.
I remember asking, like, is this what we want to do? Like, they're like, yeah, if it comes across your desk, squash it. That was one of the things. So it made total sense, but it was, it definitely came with challenges, new challenges.
Yeah. And so you start saying no, start writing less of the small stuff, but still writing it, still allowed you to write it, but transitioning from it. So that the coming years, you end up doing 652,000 in premium, 154 units. So you can see the units start to trend down a little bit. And then 2022, you do 554,000, 57 units. So like we were talking about the accuracy of the numbers, close to that, ballpark it, but like a significant dip in 2022. And then you're still making cold. Now your business is, you're starting to make cold calls, right? So now you're going from, okay, now I'm generating cold calls. I've never done that before. Like, I'm used to just kind of taking it, writing it, placing it, getting with the underwriter. Now I'm actually like prospecting these people that are cold, and your business kind of contracts a little bit on purpose, but it still had to feel like, hey man, I just wrote $1 million. I'm sure it's not as fun to write $500,000.
Right.
So that had to be challenging, but how was that transition to like making cold calls when something you'd never done before?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I would say last year, call it 2022 to 2023 was probably the most challenging year, just because it was quite a dip from the years prior, and it felt at times like, when are we going to see some more, success, if you will, and it was like anything, right? It's new muscle. The cold call is a new muscle, and it takes time to develop. And now looking back on it and reflecting, what I really liked about it was it's a quantity over quality game at first, right? And we say that around here about a lot of different aspects in what we do, and it's none truer, I think, than in cold calling. It's like when you start there and you're making a transition from writing anything that comes in to like, okay, now I'm more niche, I'm more looking at certain things. It was a lot of quantity, and it was like, just make the calls, just make the dials,
get the rep,
just do the rep. The phone's heavy, like just call. It doesn't matter what you say. Obviously you think about what you say, but like that's not the important part. You're not trying to close this person on the first call. You're just trying to get some words out to them, really. You're just trying to talk and get them to engage with you. So you go from there, and then you move into, okay, now I'm slowly, I want to make these, now I want some more quality. I've done the quantity, I've made a bunch of calls, haven't seen a lot of traction, but hey, at least the outcome was making the calls. That's what we were focused on. Now it's like the next step is setting marketing meetings. right? So now it's like, okay, how effective are you? You can make the calls, but how effective are you?
Yep.
So I see that in anything you do is like a transition of you're starting just do the thing, just flex the muscle, and then slowly improve your quality. And when you improve your quality, you will inevitably decrease your quantity because you're spending more time on it and you're more effective and you're getting the results with less effort.
Yeah, which is kind of the way your production went. Go super wide, write a lot of volume, and then contract. And then, by the way, to finish it, right, you start making cold cards, start specializing. You start to, develop a reputation. Obviously, you have existing clients in your business too. But on pace to write 1.1 million this year, your biggest production year yet. And it's probably going to be 50 or 60 policies, something going to end up, right? Yeah. Give or take a few. So when you think about that, when you go from your top year writing 246 policies, right, at 938,000 in premium, to being on pace to write 1.1 million in premium, but the massive caveat that's 200 less policies to be able to get that. So that's more revenue. Your average revenue from that, or average premium per policy was $3,800 per commercial policy, now to about $20,000 per policy, which is like a 426% increase. So when you talk about the epitome of going quantity first to quality, that just speaks volumes of what you just shared in a real way, because now your business is really thriving in a way that it's a scalable, duplicatable model. That I go back to the fact that we have the ability to consistently deliver on the promise that you made at a profit. So it is a win-win, which is what all businesses and business builders are looking for. So bring me back into the cold calling, because I think, personal lines team, you could probably relate to this. Hey, I've never referral marketed, and that phone feels heavy. What do I say to these people? Am I saying too much? Am I not? There's a level of, in my experience, is like every call you're reflecting, like, oh, that was terrible. Like, I'm really bad at this. And it's hard to do something long enough at a high enough volume when you're not good at it.
Yeah.
So was that a patience to where you go, man, I'm not good at this, but I'm going to keep going? But was there something that clicked that you go, man, that call wasn't that bad? Like, that was a decent call. Like, you remember anything like that?
Yeah, there was definitely some, and it's when you get some more engagement from the person you're speaking with, is like what really fires you up. Like, I can think of specific calls that you get good engagement back, and you just, I walk outside the office here and like pace for a minute and maybe text, Enrique and Joe or something and tell them about the call. And it's just like, it's those moments, those cookie jar moments that keep you going, that kind of give you more confidence. But then there's many calls where like you hang up the phone and you're like, why did I say that? Like, sure. What am I even saying? And you get really frustrated, and you have people that hang up on you, and then you take it personal, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they're hanging up on me. Like, what did I do wrong? And then you got to kind of compartmentalize that and say, no, they just don't want to talk to. It doesn't matter who I was or what I said, they were going to hang up on me.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of internal warfare, I feel like, and I think that's the biggest thing is detach yourself from the outcome of those calls, even later in the game. I know I said, especially early on when you're making quantity, is like, when you detach yourself from what's that?
When you suck.
Yeah, exactly. Detach yourself from what happens, which is hard because you're always judging yourself on every call. And it's like, once you just get ripping, it's like, again, like with anything, the more experience you have, the less attached you get to each individual outcome. So, I think that's, stay neutral.
Yeah, volume negates luck. It was interesting. I think about relationship management when people first start on that side. It's as simple as asking people where they have their car insurance and if we can have an opportunity. And for most, when that first starts, that's a big deal because you've never done it before. And once you do it at volume, at first you're like, where do you have your car insurance? Like, it's really awkward, and it can be, but then all of a sudden you get to a point where like, hey, I'm just, I'm curious. And it's, you pick up the skill set along the way of like deference and curiosity and playfulness of tonality. And you become more of a master at asking better questions, and you become more effective. But in order to do that, if you just focus on the volume long enough, you're going to be tired of being bad.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
And then you're going to be like, you know what? And I would also ask you before we move on from the cold calling, which I just give you so much credit, because I think it's harder to unlearn than to learn. And so when you came in and you learned the business and really excelled at the way that we were doing it, we were the ultimate generalist, right?
Yeah.
And you became the mountaintop of a generalist, doing everything we asked of you. And then for us to collectively shift gears and go a different direction, regardless of the intent or the belief of the vision and the direction, it's still challenging to say, you know what, this is just new, man. Like this is everything different than what I'm doing. And so to sink your teeth in. But on the cold calls, specifically, have you had accounts that you've cold called, generated an appointment? So you're promoting to the next touch. So you're getting an opportunity. You're telling them a little bit about yourself. Like, walk me through on a cold call, kind of like what's your framework of generating an interest, promoting to the next touch? Like, what do you work through when you make those calls?
Yeah, no, good question. It's you know, you kind of, one cool thing I learned was from Jeremy Miner. It was like, you know, you get these lists of cold call. You don't always know exactly who you're calling.
Yep.
But you may have a name, right? And some people may call and be like, "Hello, this is Eric with Urban Young. Is this Jim?" Mm. And instantly they know that you don't know who they are. Mm. They instantly know it's probably a cold call, and it's like, you know, it's kind of turned off. So go in assuming you have a name. Go and assume that's the right person. If that's not the right person, be like, "Oh no, sorry, this isn't Jim. This is so and so." You
yes.
know.
Okay.
So that was a very cool, subtle touch that has worked well. And luckily with our list and things, I typically get the right person. Mm-hmm. And I think that just instantly, you know, you just kind of act like you know who they are. So you kind of just give a short pitch, if you will, about who you are and what you do. And as it's evolved, the better we've gotten at doing this is give them a little nugget that instantly tells them you're an authority in their space. Mm. You know, give them something, drop a name, a company, or something that you know they most likely are having troubles with, mm-hmm. or struggles with, and that also tells them that you're not just calling them out of nowhere. And even just a lot of times I just say, "Hey, I specialize. I'm an expert in whatever your field is," which is true, right? Which is why we call it. And I think above any word you say in the process is the energy when you say it.
That's what I wanted to get to, is that at first, where there are times that you're just like bleeding the phone dry at your desk, maybe shoulders hunched, not having a good time. Okay, I just got to get the reps. And then there to get to a point where like, okay, before I make the call, let me get my state right. Let me get my breath. Let me walk around. I see you pacing a lot. Was that a shift for you? You think people can feel that?
No, there was definitely times I've listened to calls and it's like, wow, I wouldn't buy from me, you know? And again, it doesn't matter what you say, but the energy in which you say it. You know, I've found the most traction in the last month that I feel like I didn't hardly say a whole lot, but I could tell that I had and you get confidence, right? So the more confidence you have, the better your energy is, and the people feel that. You know?
I heard a quote saying that people don't necessarily have to buy or have to believe what you believe. It's just they believe if you believe it, right, kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Your conviction, your energy, your enthusiasm lends authority, which goes, okay, let me listen. I heard you make a call the other day. Hey, just want to let you know we deal with businesses just like this. We're, you know, experts in this space, with lack of the exact verbiage. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious if you were having these issues, and I'd love to have them in your time, whatever it was. And I think about with referral source marketing. Hey, what's up, Jim? Mortgage broker XYZ. Look, I was looking online. I love your guys' business and the way it works. Hey, we deal with thousands of home closings a year at our agency. We've built our entire business around it. I was just curious if you're having these issues and if I could speak with you about them or get to a formal introduction. Rod always says promote to the next touch. You don't have to give it all at once, but building authority is a great nugget early on, and that's a great skill set to have.
Totally. Yeah, and that first call is simply just give them a quick blurb like, hey, I was wondering if I can help. I'm just looking to help you, mm-hmm. you know? And then like, I know I caught you off guard. I'm just looking to introduce myself and find a time that works for both of us, maybe in the next week, that we can jump on a 10, 15-minute call.
Yep.
You know, so I don't ever get into it in that first call. It's like, I'm just looking to set an appointment with you later.
Yep.
And then set that appointment. And then inevitably, you know, it doesn't always work out when you set that appointment that you connect with them. And that's another quality move is when you get their attention on that first call, is like really enthusiastically let them know, like, hey, we're setting this meeting. I really, let's both make sure it's important to us.
Yeah.
Set a calendar appointment. Send them an email, say, hey, I sent you a calendar invite. I'm going to call you. So that's another nuance to make sure you successfully move from one call to the next.
That rings so true. You're almost reselling and hey, if you give me a yes, then I'm going to take it as a yes, and we're going to put it on the calendar. I'm going to state my intention. I'm going to let you know I'm prepping for it. I'm going to send you a follow-up email, whatever it is. Yeah. I remember Craig was making cold calls. And he said, hey, this person's willing to meet with me. And Rod's like, well, did you get a time? No. I call him back right now. Call him back right now and get it on the calendar.
I remember that.
Right?
I do, yeah.
And that's the muscle, too, that once you start marketing, you don't realize that, like, no. Like, if you get a yes, you get it on the calendar, and now it's a yes. So that's cool. That's cool.
I can see Craig's just so giddy he got a yes. It's like,
that's it.
Wait, I have to do something else? I have to figure it out? I mean, we've all been there, right? It's like.
Pick up the phone right now. Call him. And then, obviously, you've had time in the business. I think that can also be underrated for a producer or a marketer, is that once you have time in the business, you develop a reputation. You've been doing it consistently. Also, everything's not new to you. So when you get a risk and it used to take you an entire day to figure out where you're going to place it, it maybe takes you an hour or it takes you 10 minutes. And so can you speak to that as far as kind of what you've been able to do with less volume? How much of your business are you spending on marketing activity versus placing business? Let's take the renewal side out of it completely, but just when you're in marketer mode versus agent mode, is that a balance that you play with, that approximately try to have a certain amount in each area?
Yeah, I think especially learning a new muscle and the phone's heavy, it can be very easy to let yourself make excuses or get distracted with the stuff you're used to doing, you're comfortable with doing, right? I know I struggled with that a lot at first. It's like I had things coming in other places, right? And it's like, oh, I have all this other stuff going on. I don't have time to market. I don't have time to do it. And you give yourself those easy outs, those excuses. I think that was a very difficult thing for me to work through. And you just gotta tell yourself no. It's like you gotta set a time block. Like,
do you set a time?
Yeah, that's it's gotten better where I've not been done as much, but that I had to draw a line in the sand. Like, I have to set time during each day on these days from this time to this time. I would minimize my email, right? Like, get it off the screen. Like, I can't even see it. And I'm just making calls, and it's so easy to always look at your email or what's the next thing coming in. And it's like, the more uncomfortable I noticed, the more uncomfortable I was with making the calls, the easier I let other things come into my view.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's just human behavior and knowing yourself and trying to find leverage on yourself. I just want to also just like stop and I just like look at this, because I think of some of our personal lines team members on the senior agent side and advisors too, is it's not all about placing business. It's about doing both. It's about building your business the right way for sustainability, and in their case, referral marketing. And I know there are agents that have written more premium than they are currently, whether it's at other places or in prior years, because they're reshaping their business to taking anything or a referral marketing approach, or in your case, a niche approach where I'm cold calling and I'm generating specialized leads and converting them. And sometimes it has to contract a little bit before it explodes. And in your case, you've had a year where it's exploded. And I just think if anybody can borrow from the belief that you keep doing that the right way, that now your business is to the point that, like, on a trend of like, okay, wow, that could be scary. Now that I've built it the right way and I have the mechanism and I've developed the skill, I could kind of scale this thing as big as I want to scale it, which is the difference between if you're just a generalist and just an agent and you're not doing those things. It caps out. You get burnout. You can only do so much. There's only so much time in the day. That kind of thing is such a threat to business builders. So I just want to congratulate you, man. I think you can learn so much from it. And then lastly, man, I just kind of wanted to open it up to you. I mean, I really appreciate your preparation with notes, and you're just such a great human, and you've always loved this place so much, and this place has also always loved you so much. and you've just constantly done more and asked for the ball. And I just kind of want to give you the platform, kind of like what makes you tick, man? Like what makes you you, and what are you excited about right now?
Yeah. Man, you had mentioned that quote in our prep for this, add 'em up at the end. And it's one that I've just always resonated with. And I've said it to Seth a bunch of times. He really loves it. And it's like, I think that, that grinder mentality you said, I mean, to be honest, I don't really like that word. I've never really liked it, even though I feel like I am that. It's like, I like to be the guy that I think of a golfer I used to play against when I was a kid. He was an older gentleman, and it wasn't pretty. He didn't hit it far, but you knew he was going to play well on each hole. Like, he played a match play, right? Like, he's going to be there. He's going to be consistent. It's just like, our three pillars, showing up. It's like, if you continue to show up consistently over a long period of time, you're going to have success. And I think, again, not the golf thing, but it's such a big part of my life for 20 plus years. It was a lot of what I did from a young kid to a young adult. And I think it's a sport that it takes so much time and effort to see small results that, it's not an instant result game. And so much of this world and what we do every day is an instant result thing. And I am blessed to have that opportunity and have that experience of golf to train myself. And it trained me to say, like, you got to put in all this time to get this much, So I think that's been a cool thing. And add 'em up at the end is like, you got to stick to the process. The result's not going to come the next day. It's going to come a year from now. And when you're playing golf, you got to stay in the moment too, right? Like, you hit a poor shot. Well, if you focus, if you stay, if you dwell on that shot, you're going to hit another poor shot the next hole. Then you're going to have a bad hole. Now you have a bad hole. It's going to turn into, it's going to snowball effect on you. So if you can just stay focused to that one shot at a time, the result is only a product of your process and your preparation. It's the result is not the thing. So it's like, if you stay focused for 18 holes on every single shot you hit, and you just let that be its own game, and you stay focused each one, I'm sure the result at the end, that when you add them up, your 18-hole score is going to be better than it would be if you keep thinking about every shot you hit. So, applying it to insurance, life, at home, whatever it may be, it's like just stay in that moment and focus on the process and keep refining your process, and that result's gonna take care of itself.
What a metaphor for life. And the last piece of that you just said, keep refining your process, right? It's not all about just going and banging the club as many times as you're banging it in the 18-hole round. Like, there's an iteration aspect of this too, is that as you get better and you reflect post-round, post-cold call, post-marketing of this, you're able to learn along the way and get better. And golf's such a good example, because I think most people like me are like, I wish I was better at golf, But the reality is, like, there's so much time that you have to put in to become a great golfer. And it's no different than becoming a great marketer or a great leader. It's just that I think there's a misperception for people of how much it actually takes to become really good at something. And, another thing about you before we sign off is that amongst that process, I think the biggest threat to becoming good enough is staying in the game long enough. And when you're doing something at a high volume that you're not currently yet very good, it can lack fun. You can lack confidence, and you can get burnt out in that process. But if you find a way to enjoy the process, this is like you. I work out with you 2 days a week, and this morning I'm over there and I'm about to keel over, and I hear you kind of screaming because you find ways to have fun in the hard. And if you can find ways to have fun in the hard, then you can stay in the hard long enough to where it gets a little easier and you become, elite at whatever you're doing. So I say it all the time. I wouldn't want to compete against you. I'm glad you're on our side. And I know the listener, regardless of what position they sit in, will get a lot from this. I know I have, dude.
Yeah.
So,
No, and I'll say too about Urban Young, it's like I came in and I realized quickly who you guys were and what the company was about. I luckily came in September 2017, and we had the summit in October, and it just, that timing was so divine and just amazing to have that, see that big picture so early on, and just be able to have that nugget out there to say, you know, I get where this company's going, you know, and I think having that, seeing that vision and knowing what's possible, and seeing, you know, maybe who's done it before you, can really help you get through that hard too.
That's cool. That's cool.
Get you through to the other side is like, is know that you're a part of something that's bigger than, you know, just showing up at 9 and leaving at 5. You know, it's you know, you're not there just to be there. You know, you're there to grow, get better, and have success, and watch others around you have success.
Gosh, well said, man. I can learn from that too. So, well, thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you.